Hi, I'm Joanna Penn from thecreativepenn.com, and today I'm going to tell you a bit about how I write fiction and non-fiction and the writing tool that changed my life, and I hope you'll find this really useful. So first up, if you don't know anything about me, very quickly, I write two different things. I write fiction, kind of dark fiction, Stephen King-ish, and action adventure under JF Penn. So I definitely write novels, I write novellas, I have box sets under fiction. And then I also write non-fiction under Joanna Penn and for the Creative Penn audience, who are generally authors, writers, creatives, that type of thing. So I write both fiction and non-fiction, and I wanted to share a bit about both in this video. So before we go into the actual writing, I get a lot of questions, and in fact, a lot of writers get questions about where do you find your ideas and how do you do research. So just a couple of things that might help you with writing your books. So first of all, for non-fiction, there are two main directions, I guess, to come at for your ideas and your research. So first of all is solving a problem or filling a need in the market. So for example, I wrote How to Market a Book mainly because I wanted to encapsulate everything I'd been learning myself, but solving the problem of how to market a book for authors specifically. Now, I've included here on the screen a screenshot of Amazon. Now, Amazon is a search engine, and this is a really good tip for non-fiction authors in particular. You can also use it if you're fiction, but for non-fiction in particular, if you go into Amazon, I would start with Amazon.com and go change the little search bar, put it into Kindle Store or to books, and then start typing something. What will happen is you'll get this drop down, and the drop down are the most popular searches on Amazon, and we think that it's in order. So here you can see how to be a, and if you start, I just go through the alphabet, how to be a, how to be a B, and what will happen is you'll see the drop down of what people are actually searching for. So you can see here, you could write a book called How to Be a CEO, and people are actually looking for that. So that's a really good tip for non-fiction authors. Have a look at what people are actually searching for. You can also use this if you're writing your own books from the other perspective, which is you're sharing your expertise, or you're starting from a place of I'm sharing my own my own interest, my own expertise, and then make sure the title fits the Amazon keyword. So I did that with my book Career Change. We'll talk a bit more about this in marketing, which is a later video. But essentially, you can start by actually looking at what people are looking for and then write a book, or you can have a look at what you are and who you are and what your experience is, and then write a book from that angle, or serve your existing market. So again, when I wrote a book on public speaking, 95% of that book is applicable to anyone who wants to do public speaking, but I chose to target it directly at authors, creatives, and other introverts. So that was kind of my niching down of the public speaking book. All right, so in terms of ideas and research for fiction, this is, I think, quite different. Quite different in a number of ways. So first of all, I do think that it's about what you read. So I've included a sort of dark picture there of Jekyll and Hyde from the British Library recently, an exhibition about Gothic literature. And I read pretty dark books. I also read action adventure. Stephen King is my favourite author. So I really think that first of all, what you want to write fiction-wise will come out of the milieu of what you're reading. So often, people write what I think, you write what you love to read. So that's a kind of broad aspect. And then the second thing is what fascinates you? What do you love reading about in terms of research? Or what do you want to do with your research? So for me, and that's one of my own pictures from the Sagrada Familia in Spain, which I went to on a research trip and is the opening scene of my book Gates of Hell. So basically what I do is I like to go to a lot of actual physical places. So that British Library exhibition about Gothic literature, got loads of ideas there. I always carry a notebook, so I put things in my notebook, or I also put stuff in the phone. So I take a lot of pictures, which I put on Pinterest. I've put my link there for Pinterest. I have a board for every single book, and I'll share pictures there from my research. I'll also read a lot of books about things. So right now I'm researching a book about my book Deviance, which is set in London, and I'm researching the Southwark and the sex trade basically in London. So it's really interesting, and I can go, went on a trip last weekend and walked around the back streets of London where the Globe Theatre was when Shakespeare was there, and found some really interesting stuff, Crossbones Graveyard, that type of thing. So I personally do a lot of research in person, but you can do a lot of that online now. So if you live in the middle of nowhere, you can do a lot of stuff online. Flickr, for example, YouTube. Oh, YouTube's brilliant. In Gates of Hell, I have a scene scuba diving in the Dead Sea, which is incredibly salty, and you can actually dive it, and it's not fun. But I found a video on YouTube of scuba diving in the Dead Sea and used that in my book because, of course, I haven't done it myself and don't want to. So you can do field trips, you can do research online, but I would always be looking for what fascinates you. So like this morning on the online news I was reading, there was they've just rebuilt this ice church in Transylvania. Now, when I hear ice church in Transylvania, that to me, I want to write about that. There's got to be an idea there somewhere. So for me, it's about, and I capture ideas on my phone. I use Things app, which is fantastic, and I just note down ideas, and I also have a lot of notebooks. I probably fill 5 or 6 notebooks a year at the moment with ideas, and then I'll go through the ideas. But it's amazing how things come up later. You think things are lost, but then they re-emerge from your mind. So with fiction, put better stuff in and great stuff comes out. So if you feel you have writer's block, go on a research trip. That would be my tip. And the same with non-fiction. For example, that book about how to be a CEO. Unless you are a CEO, you're going to have to do some research. So in that case, you could interview CEOs. There's a great, interesting book called The Eventual Millionaire by Jamie Tardy, and that's done through research with millionaires. And right now, I don't believe she is one, but she can write that because she interviewed them. So research, I think, is really important, whatever you're writing. Okay, so let's actually talk about the writing. Now, this is the life-changing tool for me and many writers, and that is Scrivener. And if you already use Scrivener, I'm going to show you how I particularly use it in this video. But also, if you haven't got it, seriously, it's life-changing, and I hope I convince you to get it. It is only US dollars, $45, and what's that, about 30 pounds. And from what I'm going to show you, you will realise that this is an incredible investment. I didn't use Scrivener. I didn't know about Scrivener for my first novel, Pentecost, but ever since then, those are all the books I've written up till now. They're all done on Scrivener, and with the extra bonus of being able to do box sets, which I will talk about in a bit. Okay, so I'm gonna show you some slides, but I'm also gonna show you my own Scrivener files. So hopefully there'll be no spoilers for my books. Okay, so first of all, when you first get Scrivener, what you can do is, you basically go create new, and you can use templates. So you can create novel templates, non-fiction templates, and that includes, a general non-fiction book, and it also academic papers and that type of thing. So that's pretty exciting. And then what that does is actually creates, then you just fill in the blanks. So you can see here with the binder, you can fill in the blanks of the different stuff. So that's really cool. And I just wanted to kind of give you that up front, because the templates are the things that can save a lot of time when you're actually doing stuff. And really the most kind of life-changing thing for me with Scrivener is that I don't believe many of us write in order. You don't normally, especially with non-fiction, but even with fiction. So with non-fiction, for example, I just brain dump stuff and fill in the blanks. So I will show you a book I'm writing at the moment called Mindset. So here we are actually in Scrivener, and I wanted to show you in terms of when a book is in progress, non-fiction book, for example, this is how I get started with a non-fiction book. So author mindset is not the title, it's a rough idea of what I want to write about. And essentially this is, I feel like I want to write about the psychology of writing. So that will be the approximate book. Then what I do is I basically just stick a whole load of things in here. So what's so great about Scrivener is you don't have to write in chapters in order. Like MS Word is just a nightmare because you can't, well, it's very difficult to restructure things and, cut and paste, and it's just not designed for it. Whereas what you can do with Scrivener, so say I want to add something new, I just add that there, and I want to write, I'll just write something new for now. I just add that in, and it's like a placeholder. So when you're doing non-fiction, like one of the first things you do is it's this brain dump of everything you kind of want to write about. And then, for example, I've got here allowing yourself to write rubbish. And that's the first draft material, which is actually kind of meta because that's what we're talking about. And a few quotes here that I'm kind of keeping. And at this point, I don't know what I will keep and what I will leave behind. So, for example, this fear of judgment, this is a blog post I wrote that I've copied and pasted into Scrivener. But how do I know that my writing is good enough? I actually have started writing this chapter. So all I do is, and you can see it's not particularly done yet. So when I just come in here, I chuck a whole load of top level titles, and then of course what I might do at some point is decide that actually that vulnerability chapter should go down there, and that's the magic. I mean, if you write out of order like I do for fiction and non-fiction, that is magic. Because what you can do is when you compile it, which is because you basically write it in these little documents, and then when you're ready to compile, you just do file compile, and you can compile in a whole load of different formats here, which we're going to come back to in a minute. But essentially, if you want to change the order, all you do is you drag the file somewhere else and recompile. But in terms of the structuring, what I do then is, you can actually, for example, I've put mine into some of the things you'll experience as an author and the mindset you need to survive, and then how to change. Don't believe the hype or the misery. But again, I've just created that as a one-liner, and then I'll fill in the blanks. So then what I do as I actually progress through the book is I change the label and the flags on the document. So for example, here I can change the icon, and what I normally do is I make it a yellow one. So say I'm happy with that chapter as a first draft, I will change the flag to yellow. And then what I will do is when all my little flags are yellow, so either I have written this, and it's not really a chapter so much as you can put them into chapters later. It could be a scene in fiction, but for non-fiction, just kind of chucking it down there. So say I only end up with these 3 lines on this one. Well, maybe I just take that out there and I put it in this one instead. So you can do lots of dragging and dropping around and changing stuff. And then with the flags, you can use that functionality. Okay, so the idea is the same with fiction, and you can see here this is a book that I've had some ideas about, but I haven't actually started writing yet. You can see the large pane of white. But what I've started doing here is adding scene kind of ideas, which is what I do. I normally come up with like a one-liner or a few lines per scene. Now this is the inspector. You can turn it off, and you can also write in full page mode. But you can add it in. It's a really good tool for sort of planning and plotting, depending on how much you do that. I'm trying to do it more. But essentially, again, you can see like what I've got here is before and then arriving at the Edinburgh Festival, and a bit about the Crazy Festival and the fortune teller character. So I've had a few ideas for scenes. Now this is meant to be a full-length book, so I need a lot more scenes. For me, a scene is around 2,000 words. I have some recommendations for scenes a bit later. But essentially, you can see I've used the novel format, which has come from the templates. And then I add in the various scenes. Also, you can have character templates, which is cool. So you can drag in pictures. And again, this is a really new file, so I haven't filled in very much, but you can also have the city. So that's using the actual template, and you can see again I've not written anything here. just on the compose mode, all you do is you just click that and you've got a blank screen to start typing all of your words, which is fantastic. Okay, so that's basically when I'm actually starting writing, it looks a bit like this. Now, then you write, obviously, and we will later on in this series, I'll share some tips around productivity and things. But essentially, you get on with writing. I will share right now that one of the things I really like is this project targets. So essentially you can say, I want my manuscript's going to be, let's say 70,000 words and on a session, and then you have a choice. You can either say like my deadline. So say I want my deadline to be 15th of April 2015. I can say I write 6 days a week, or you can say I write 5 days a week, and it will automatically calculate. So if I want to write 70,000 words, I have to write that many words 6 days a week to get to that goal. And then as you write stuff, you get a little a red bar that turns green as you meet your goal. And that's awesome. That's really handy. So let's look at a book that is finished. So this is Gates of Hell, essentially. So you can see here, this is a finished and published book. Very exciting. So I have a title page. Now I didn't use the template for this. I just used my own template. So you don't need to use those templates. You can work it out for yourself. So essentially, just going into the prologue here. So you can see the writing is there. And on the right, I've got, this is at the beginning, you can see how that mapped into that first novel I just showed you, that the murder happened. And then these document notes are actually from my editor, and essentially on when I've done that first draft, my editor gives me some notes and I use that to do the rewrite. So you can see that I've got a green flag. So I essentially go from the yellow flag at the end of first draft to a blue flag, which means it's been second drafted and then it's gone to my editor, and green is it's ready to publish. You can also use different labels and you can set these up yourself. And you can see here, this is a revised draft. So there's stacks and stacks of tools you can use in Scrivener. But essentially, and also down here, you can see this is around 2,163 words. That's kind of average for my type of chapter. So that, and you can see that's how it ends up in the end. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you here is my research. So I keep a separate folder within each Scrivener file, and I've got here an explanation of Kabbalah. So, and this book, Gates of Hell, is based on Kabbalah mysticism and Jewish mysticism. And this is essentially some, directly from stuff I'm researching. I've got some stuff here on planetary alignment, which was really cool. I found that you could get this blood moon, which I included in the book, and this is just copied and pasted out of different places, and how that actually. And then it really helps if you keep it within the same Scrivener file, because then you know that you're not plagiarizing in any way. Well, I find it's easier. You can also do a split screen mode where you can see your research at the same time. And then I also have settings in here. So you saw before on the templates they have settings, characters, etc. But here you can see my my Gates of Hell research, and I've just pasted in there. You can see Daily Mail and Wikipedia and all of that type of thing. So it's good to keep that here. And then in terms of the characters, I actually do bring in photos of the characters. So I found this one lady who I really liked. Yeah, and I mean, she's not particularly famous as far as I know. It's just when I go online and I start to Google people who, might look like something. So here, Alejandro, of course. And there's, and Mikhail is Sacha Baron Cohen as Sasha, not as Borat, obviously. So I also keep character notes. So for example, right eye scarred for Adam Cadmon. It's really good if you keep this per character, even if it's as basic as mine, because otherwise you totally forget which eye is scarred. So that's really helpful to me. I often do that before I kind of finish the thing. And then basically you can see that everything's green, and I keep the description as a one-liner until I'm about to publish, and then I change to chapter 1, chapter 2, and that's how it compiles. So just to pop back to non-fiction, this is also one of the very cool things. So I've actually got 3 non-fiction books here that I've packaged into the Writer's Toolbox. This is a really great tip. If you have 3 books in a series or that are related, you can package them up. It doesn't cost you any more money. This is what's so brilliant. And you can have a higher priced product. So this book, the Writer's Toolbox, is actually not available on Amazon because it's priced over $9.99. So otherwise I wouldn't be able to get the 70% royalty. But you can see it's made up here of how to market a book, business for authors, and public speaking. So, and each one of these you can see is a finished non-fiction book. So if we just go into business for authors, I've used the folders to group together the 1.1, 1.2, for example. So you can see here that this is a finished chapter for non-fiction. Actually, the flag is still blue, so sometimes I don't use the green flag, but I do change colours, and it does help me keep track of things. And the parts, this is how I end up grouping them together. So that mindset book will eventually look something like this, but the process of getting to that point is an iterative one. So essentially, I use parts a lot more. So if we look at how to market a book, again, it's made up of part 1, part 2, your book fundamentals, etc. And then when I've put them together in the box set, I've essentially imported the Scrivener, individual Scrivener files for those books, and created a box set. And all that is when you compile it, it just puts all that material in one file, so people can buy the one file that contains 3 books. And seriously, it's magic, because every time you've got a 3-book kind of clump, you can put that out there and people will buy it. I mean, this changed my life when this happened, because I really didn't believe people would buy a triple pack, more than they would buy the individual books, but they do. So that's a big recommendation, and should help you. Okay, so that's fiction and non-fiction. I also should say I just add this kind of end matter, which is, other books by me, a bit about me, and of course the acknowledgements. So you can put that at the end of all of your books, the thanks, that type of thing. Okay, so just briefly, because I know I've mentioned writing in scenes for fiction, and I know some of you might be confused, I just wanted to briefly mention this fantastic book, Story Engineering by Larry Brooks, and I've put a link there, thecreativepenn.com/story engineering, which will take you to the book, and I interviewed Larry as well. This book changed my fiction writing life, because until you can understand scenes, it's really difficult. It's like the penny has to drop, and once you get it, you'll be able to write fiction. Well, you'll be able to start writing fiction anyway, but it's a really big deal to understand around point of view, who are the characters, don't do massive amounts of head hopping, what happens, how are you moving the story forward, the story values, what's the point, all of these things are very important. So writing in scenes, I recommend that book, Story Engineering. Okay, my other really big tip is when you're actually writing, don't edit. So I found this is some first draft material from Pentecost originally, and anyway, there's some things on it that remained in the book and a lot of them that changed. So you can see it's known as the agency. It never is again. They often get it right. There is a typo. It's how I found K, and K isn't the name in the end. It's actually Faye. So this is the thing, like some of the stuff you write in the first draft will change, and the most important thing is to get it out of your head and onto the page. So I've got here the Philemon organization. That's not the name. I used the name Thanatos in the end, which is a Greek word for death. And then you can see I've put stuff in brackets, need new name, and need to understand physical location. So these are the types of notes you can put into your draft as you're writing within Scrivener, within that compose mode, and then you can fix it later. So really important, in my opinion anyway, to just write and don't edit. In saying that, of course, at some point you need to edit. And in terms of how I edit, what I do is when all my flags in Scrivener are yellow, I print out the document. So you can see there, that's actually a picture of some of my printouts and my editing. So I do my first edit by hand on paper. So I print 2 pages to a page. You can see there how I do it, and I will scribble all over it and use pen, and I'll spend a long time doing that. That's my first big edit. Then I will go back into Scrivener and I will make my changes back into Scrivener, because it's like my master file. That is the file I will use to publish from. That's why it's so important to have everything back in Scrivener. There are some people who write in Scrivener, export their first draft to Word, and then remain in Word. I personally prefer to edit back into Scrivener. I also find that I like to double check all the edits that I do. So for example, when I get stuff back from my own editor, which I will also export into Word, send her that, she'll send it back with track changes, I still won't just accept all and re-import, for example, which you could do. What I like to do is actually check each edit and check each line to see if that's okay. So now the very exciting part where you're actually compiling. So this is another reason why Scrivener software is so valuable to indie authors in particular. Of course, any author it will be useful, but if you are self-publishing, it's super duper. Now, if you want to pay someone to format your Word document into, say, a Kindle file or into an EPUB file for iBooks, Kobo, Nook, Drafts Digital, or into a Smashwords format, for example, you will be paying, it could be $25, it could be $50, $70. It's normally under $100, but that's per file. Now, I've got like 12 books or something, for a lot of books, and more coming all the time. And if you think that for each book I need to compile it into multiple formats, if I pay $45 forever, a one-off payment, then formatting books is just not a big deal. So let me show you how easy it is. So essentially, I want to format Gates of Hell, and I just do File, Compile. File, compile. And of course, you've got to get the various, you've got to have a play. I mean, it normally takes me a couple of goes when I check all the formatting and all this type of thing. But essentially, you choose what you want, and of course here you can compile for MS Word, and PDF if you want, and Final Draft and all kinds of things. But generally you want to be doing Kindle. Generally I'm doing Microsoft Word, Kindle, EPUB. That's pretty much all I ever use, but you can see there's lots of other things. You can use Scrivener for blogging, for example, and use multi-markdown, but we're going to do just Kindle. So I choose the Kindle Gen. Things like metadata, you can add this stuff in. Of course, we've imported the cover, and then you just compile and you choose where it's going to go. I'll just put it on the desktop for now, and I'll just call it A, and then you just export. So what that's doing is now creating a file for Kindle. Wow. And you can do the same thing for EPUB, for Kobo, or any of the other ones. So you can just change it to EPUB and again compile. I mean, it's super easy. And then what you do is you obviously you want to go check that format. So if you download the Kindle for Mac or PC on your desktop, and you download iBooks, for example, or another EPUB checker, you should check the file and make sure that it's all come out right. But basically, if you use the formats and you give it a little play, you'll be fine. And then what you do with those files is you go and take them to KDP or to iBooks or whatever and publish with them. It's like magic. I mean, seriously, when I found out about this, it made such a difference. So instead of having to pay for every, format necessary, I can essentially do it myself. Also, it means you can update your old books. So I can update Pentecost with details about the latest Arcane novel, for example, which is brilliant. Okay, so I hope you can see how fantastic Scrivener software is. And one of the difficult things about it really is how powerful the software is. And so after years of using it myself and kind of realizing I was using about 10%, I discovered the Learn Scrivener Fast training. Now, of course, Scrivener has manuals that go along with it. So if you buy the software, you can just use the manual. But what I really like about the Learn Scrivener Fast training is the awesome little videos, as in 1 or 2 minutes. Now, obviously, this video is getting quite long at this point, but if you want to know something specific about Scrivener, you can go into Learn Scrivener Fast and find out that exact thing, and that will save you a lot of time. Now, of course, we all want to save time, it's really important. And there are a stack more things that you can do as an author with Scrivener. So I really recommend the Learn Scrivener Fast training, and you can get it at thecreativepen.com/Scrivener. And I'm now going to take you behind the scenes so you can see what you're getting if you're interested. Okay, so I'm going to sort of take you through the course in the back end so you can see what you get. Now, first of all, I should just introduce my friend Joe, who is fantastic. He's known as the Scrivener coach, and he's a good guy. He's one of the good guys, and he knows everything there is to know about Scrivener. And if he doesn't, if you have a question, he is the man. So he is the person who does this course, and it is super fantastic. So let's see what you get within the course. Okay, so first of all, you start with the basics, obviously, and in the basics, Joe goes through some really good things. So first of all, I want to point out how short these videos are. 1 minute 37, 2 minutes 17. This, to me, is the reason this is the best training, because you don't have to watch half an hour to figure out one thing. So for example, if you want to know how to use the corkboard, which is the overview and planning tool, you can just watch a 4-minute video and learn how to use it. And for example, importing research files, that's a really useful thing. And lots of things around presets, using the various tools that, if you say, for example, you already have a manuscript in Microsoft Word, this will help you how to import the file and just start using it in Scrivener. It also includes the, some of the basic printing, outputting, the statistics and setting targets is the thing I showed you that's really awesome, that I love and keeps me accountable in Scrivener. Then we get into the ninja tips and tricks, which I like, and clearly I'm a ninja because it talks about how to add colour labels to the documents, and I find that particularly useful. You can also do customizing icons and that type of thing. You can use a lot of colour. Now, I know Joe, when I've seen Joe show his kind of stuff around Scrivener, he uses a lot of color coding, and if you're somebody who loves to kind of highlight things in different colors, then that really works. And again, lots of different things. Finding a synonym or a definition, that's really useful too. If you're in the middle of writing something and you're overusing the same word, that is very cool. And that also is in the word frequency tool, so I know I tend to overuse certain words, and that will help you work out which ones. And again, really short videos, which is very useful. Then there's the Work Smarter module, and if you are a user of Evernote, this is the one for you, because you can do a lot of stuff between Evernote and Scrivener. I'm personally not, although some days I wish I was an Evernote user. It's kind of another really powerful piece of online cloud software. But essentially this talks about how to integrate your Evernote with Scrivener. So just to point out as well that because there are Mac and Windows versions of Scrivener, Joe has some videos that are specifically for Mac or for Windows, so that both sets of people will get that. So that's really handy. So here, for example, is a Mac only video. There's also stuff here about backing up and syncing your projects, which is really useful. Very important. So for example, I actually back up my Scrivener documents to a zip file and then send that to my virtual assistant, who has been doing some stuff for me. So that's really handy. Then, if you want to take your blogging to a new level, there's a whole module on Scrivener for bloggers, which is fascinating. Again, I don't use Scrivener for blogging, I just use it for books, but this is really interesting if you are wanting to take your blogging to a more organized level. I think it's fantastic for organizing. So this is really about how to organize things, how to write them, and also how to export to the Markdown version, put them into WordPress, that type of thing. So Scrivener for bloggers, more more of a niche thing. But the next module, Easy eBooks, this is what you guys need. So this will really help you with the export method. How do you actually, for example, transfer stuff to the novel template out or to the non-fiction template, and also how to compile. So you can see here, compile for Kindle, compile for Nook, iBookstore, Kobo, and compile for Smashwords. These are absolute gold and what you need. There's also stuff around table of contents, particularly good for non-fiction authors. So that's really useful. And then on top of that, there is bonus content. Now, in the bonus content, there's some really good things. So for example, some templates which will help you do things more smoothly, extra writing backgrounds, which might help you. If you don't want just that blank screen, you can get writing backgrounds. This workflow is using Scrivener with an editor, so how you can work with Scrivener while you're also editing with an external editor. There's also some bonus material. So for example, Sean Platt from the Self-Publishing Podcast has a course on behind the scenes of Scrivener planning and outlining, which you can get access to through the course that is available. I've also done another video for the course. Jeff Goins, who is big in the non-fiction space. There's also a private Facebook group, which is very cool if you want to network with other people on the course, and lots of kind of extra tools and tips and all of that. So essentially the course is really useful if you want to make the most out of Scrivener, if you want to save time. It's fantastic, and I recommend it to everyone because I've personally found it so useful. So I hope you will consider checking out Scrivener, just the software, or check out the Learn Scrivener Fast program as well if you want to learn how to supercharge your Scrivener usage and save time. So you can go to thecreativepen.com/Scrivener if you want to have a look at the Learn Scrivener Fast program. Okay, I'll be back soon with another video. Thanks for watching and happy writing.